meeting of the Trempealeau County Property Committee to order. Open meeting law requirements have been met through proper certification. We have a 12-item agenda before us. I will entertain a motion to accept that agenda.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Minutes have been distributed. I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes as distributed.
Motion.
Whatever.
Got a motion and a second.
It doesn't matter.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. See, we have a dog with us by Zoom.
It's better than me, right? Everybody loves dogs.
We have a public comment period of 15 minutes, and we're kind of open on how long that lasts. If someone wants to call in, you can do so by calling 715-538-1770. Tim Robertson, Telephone Solution. We're a little ahead of the 8:45 we projected, but that's better than late.
All right, so before I introduce Aslan, I'm going to describe the process we've gone through so far. We formed a committee of stakeholders, individuals from various departments that have a lot of phone usage of different types. They met on a regular basis over the last 3 months, or an irregular basis, I guess. We looked at proposals from multiple vendors, and we followed the information technology guidelines that we've talked about many times on this committee, with our top priority for all solutions being security, and our second most important criterion being maintainability, third being function. So using that, the proposals I printed out, cost breakdowns over a 5-year cost period for 4 of the 5 solutions that we've looked at. Well, actually, we looked at 6. We can go over those after the presentation. But what the stakeholders decided to do was they chose the Zoom platform as the hosted voice over IP solution that they would recommend to this committee that we proceed with. So with that, we wanted to introduce the Zoom solution to you in a brief overview to give you an idea of what we're looking at. And then we would take your recommendation, should you decide to go ahead with them and move forward, next to Exec Finance, and then finally to the full county board. The plan after this presentation, should you decide to accept the committee's, this stakeholder group's recommendation, would then be to work with the winning vendor to come up with a statement of work and a plan moving forward for implementation, picking dates and deadlines, in addition to pinning down exactly every service we're going to need to include with this process, make sure we're not missing any lines, missing any services. We'll have everything really tight before we would proceed forward with Exec Finance. Without any additional questions, unless you have any right now, I'd like to introduce Aslan from Zoom. She came over from Green Bay yesterday and spent some time in Trempealeau County.
Yes, good morning. Do I have to hit unmute here?
You have to hit that, yeah, so now you're right, you're good to go.
No, hit it again because it's red there.
Okay. My name is Aslan Merriman. I work for Zoom Video Conferencing. I live in the great city of Green Bay, so I traveled over here to present to you all. And I'm sharing a presentation. I'm supposed to have a workmate with me, but it looks like he just told me to wing it right before I got on. So we're all going to be surprised by this presentation. I'll give you a little background on Zoom as a company, because I think one of the really important things about making a step forward is you want to make sure that the financial representation of a business is very sound if you're going to have longevity going forward. Zoom is it's a public company. It's on the stock exchange. It was founded in 2011 by a gentleman by the name of Eric S. Yuan. He came over and created Zoom in order to create frictionless communications. And what he means by frictionless is that the way that we have evolved, even during the pandemic, people have many different communication mechanisms. They have chat, they have video meetings, they have phone, and we wanted it all to be together, to be seamless, so that you don't have to figure, where did I put that? Where is that presentation? Who sent that to me? And so that's one of the biggest things of the company, is to have frictionless video communications. We have a goal in the next 10 years to get to $10 billion. We're currently at about $4 billion globally. The Zoom phone solution as a whole was launched in 2019, before the pandemic, and we have grown in that short amount of time to over 4 million people globally that use Zoom phone for all of their communications. And I'll get into some of that here shortly. The other part is that, communications is the lifeblood of any organization. It's what you use to communicate. People have to be able to go back and forth. And 500,000 businesses around the world depend on Zoom for that. Here are some statistics that I have on the presentation. There's 46 out of 50 universities globally that have ranked the U.S. by ranked U.S. News that use Zoom. And there is 85% of the Forbes 100 companies that use Zoom for its communications daily. Here are some of the, monikers from different organizations that around the world. Let me move this so that you guys can see that a little bit better. That use Zoom video communications. One of the things is not taking my definition of success, but one of the things that's on this slide that's important to pay attention to is on the bottom there. Trust Radius is an organization that's outside of Zoom, so don't take our word for it. Trust Radius did research globally on organizations and what they felt about their communications platforms. There are different providers that have other solutions, but we were ranked very high by our customers for both video and conferencing software, as well as unified communications as a service. Unified communications as a service is a different definition for offering these services in the cloud. And what that would mean for Trempealeau is that there's not as much administration, there's not as much updating, and you don't own as much hardware to be able to provide the service long term. That's one of the things that led into our ability to have lower total cost of ownership over the course of time. That's what I think Tim did when he did his financial analysis of our solution. The biggest thing about Zoom to know is that our CEO has this idea of delivering happiness. Happiness is different for all people, but they did do a survey globally about the about what do our customers feel sales promised to individuals and what they delivered to individuals. And we were rated extremely high. We're very proud of that. We got an 80% ranking. Let me kind of move my video here so you guys can see it. But we delivered 80% on the promises that we made in organizations through the sales process. I wanted to take a second and kind of ask if there's any questions at this time.
When you say Zoom is realized $4 billion mark, is that overall sales? Is that profit? Is that?
That's total valuation of the entire organization. Okay. Yep.
Thank you.
There's a lot of people, we went through what's called the Zoom boom. And I think that a lot of people wanted to know where things settled, like where was the profitability, where's the longevity of the company. And so we're $4 billion currently, and there is that goal to grow more. There are additional products that we are putting into the market. In the last year, we released something called Zoom Events. And Zoom Events is a great platform to do, if you couldn't do a public trade show in person, because there might be people that are predisposed to the virus, then you could do that digitally, and they did a great job at it. There's a lot of, the state of Wisconsin has 3 different entities that use it to deliver. One is the Historical Society uses it to do ongoing education for communities, and then so is the DPHHS is going to use it so that they can do it to educate the communities about the risks that they have for the virus, as well as continuing learning education credits for some people that have different career fields that they need to use that for. So that's not a part of today's conversation. That's a different product. I don't want to derail that. So I do want to concentrate specifically on Zoom Phone and talk about it from like a business perspective, essentially. So this is just a breakdown of it, that there's 4 million seats totally sold around the world, and it's in all different kinds of verticals: technology, finance, insurance, manufacturing, and whatnot. And we just keep seeing things grow.
Oh, a seat.
A seat is like an individual phone line. I don't like to use the word users. I think that that's used in a different context, and so that's why I didn't use that, but yeah. Yep. So let's see. And these are specific Zoom phone customers. So I want to differentiate. We have a whole platform of services, but these individual companies use Zoom Phone specifically to do their phone systems. There's some pretty large organizations that are up there. There we go. So that's what I wanted to talk about, Zoom as a whole. Are there any other questions?
So Darren will be ready in a few minutes?
Darren cannot get on. Yeah.
He's in Montana.
Wyoming, but yes. So I do have a different presentation that I can go kind of over about the actual phone solution.
I was gonna seal the deal. He was gonna show a picture out his window of beautiful Wyoming.
Yeah, a beautiful Wyoming. See how he is? And he just wants to, like, you know, do this to me.
Question the kind of service they can give if he can't get on.
Yeah. We have certain security measures at Zoom, and I think that one of them is keeping him from getting on because they had an update over the weekend. So I know I had trouble. All right, so let's get on here. And I will share this presentation. Let's take this down. So we always have to present this. This is not for mass distribution, but for, you know, specific individual audiences like this.
This is being televised,
Yes,
so just so you're aware.
I do understand. So one of the things that we have realized in the last year is that the phone is no longer just a phone itself, and that people have their personal lives and their professional lives, and people work pretty much from anywhere. It's no longer that you just go 9 to 4 and whatnot, but Zoom has allowed for the operation of, you can do texting, you can do transcription of your voicemail to send to somebody. You can also call from a different phone number. So for instance, if you're in a customer service aspect of the county where you're doing maybe some type of like certificate or something for a business and you need to call them back, you might not want to give them your direct inward dial number so that they can call you back directly, because maybe you're on vacation, but that you would give like a main number out so that they call back to the organization and that they're able to get fast service. That's one of the things, and I can show you that a little bit later. In addition to that, we've seen that there's kind of like a new hybrid work model where you have meetings, then you have your phone. You also have kind of this, where do we keep things? Where is going to be our centralized mode of presentation? And so Zoom has done that into a, this is bad because I'm going to show you guys kind of what it looks like here. It's not showing. Why is it not here? Let me do the demonstration. We're all going to see each other here. Let me take this down. So this is what it looks like for a desktop application. It's not, difficult. It's not It's very simplified. This is something that you would download, and we're in a meeting, so I can just hit this orange button and I can go back to the meeting itself. We can do chat from here, and these are just like starred chats. These are things that people have that they can do, reminders. And then there's a tab right here that goes to phone. And if I click on the, over here, it's not giving me the, it goes and shows me the history of whoever I called, and I can call people back. I can also go into voicemail, and people can leave me descriptions of what they want to talk to me about, and then I can go over here. I can send a text message to them. That's another form of communication that's, new for our system. There are others that do provide that. You can add contacts easily through here. You can invite them. You can copy their number so that you can just post it right here and call them back. Or you can save that contact. It's a really great way to kind of accumulate contacts, especially if you're new and you're getting onboarded to an organization. It's a really great way to reach out. And this is where, if I had other lines, I would be able to see that here. So say you're in the death and births area and you need to be able to have multiple people watch the line, or somebody is out on lunch, you're easily able to transfer that responsibility to somebody else if you're going to be out for the interim. And down here on the bottom, this is where, if I pull this up, you can hide your caller ID. You can copy I can call from like main Zoom video conferencing when I call a person, or I can do directly my phone number if I want to have them be able to call me back directly. So you can give that information. And then here is the possibility of giving a simple messaging service. And this is a really great place for people to kind of, do something more advanced, more modern in their communication message. If I just go like this and I want to type a message to Darren, I type in Darren, it goes here, and I just can say, this would go to his work number, and I can just say, hello, and type to him about that. And then these are your contacts. You can look through them. You can create different groups so that it's easy for the engineering group, the facilities group and whatnot to be contacted. And I think that I'll stop there for a second. That was a lot of information. This is just the desktop app that you can use. You can also do a regular phone like you have in your office currently. And then you can also have an app on your cell phone, should you choose, that would connect to it. So it makes your, mobile cell phone, it carves out that space on your phone so that it's a different number that you can be reached at. So you would also be able to set your hours of operation. Like I have what I call a differentiation of church and state. And I set my time so that I am available from like 7 in the morning till 6 at night, because I also cover Michigan, so I have to be available. And after that, it goes to voicemail. I have it set up myself so that I can set some boundaries, if you must.
Will this system do away with the need for a desk phone in this building? Was that part of the plan?
In many areas, yes. Currently, the proposal, I've got a couple more people to meet with, but right now we're at 46 desk phone sets, as opposed to everybody having a desk phone. I've met with many department heads, and most of them are fine with just having the soft phone running on person's desktop or laptop or on their smartphone. The handsets are required for any shared desks, because your authentication into your laptop, that's your phone number. So if we have a shared desk at the front of land management, Verge's position has to be occupied and somebody has to answer the phone. So that needs a handset. Any state employee where their equipment's provided by the state, but they're county employees, the court suite, clerk of courts, DA's office, we can't put software on their laptops. But the desk set will work just fine, like the current system.
Thank you.
Yeah. that's something that you guys can decide. It's an ongoing conversation, but
Yeah, we asked the department heads to go with the absolute bare minimum and have everybody give it a try. Using the soft phone client and getting acclimated to it is going to be a rough couple months for a lot of people. They've been doing it the same way a long time. But we want to give it a chance. And if they can't do their job effectively, if there's something going wrong with that position, justification to their committee, we buy a handset and put it on their desk and away we go.
Now, oh, now, Tim, when people call in to the courthouse, we'll call them our customers, how will that phone call be transferred to the proper office or person? Basically the same as we've been doing it?
Correct. The areas that have main numbers directly to them will remain so. The main number coming in, both the toll-free number and the regular 2311 number, will continue to function the same way. The auto attendant list, the phone tree that you get when you call in, I think Paul's going to like it better because it doesn't have to do that multi-minute recording perfectly every time. You just type in what you want it to say, and you can have a lovely British woman's voice reading off, "Welcome to Trempealeau County," and then you choose one of the whole tree. And then each department can have their own sub-list if they want to break it down that way. And they can be adjusted for times a day as well. So the answering structure during the day is different than after hours, or whatever you need it to be.
Have you been able to talk to any municipalities that are currently working with Zoom?
No, I contacted those agencies around us, and everybody is an on-premise solution. And the primary motivator for that has been cost. Traditionally, municipal and local governments struggle with that monthly fee, and these things are list priced out, usually a lot higher than what's being proposed for us here today. So they haven't gone down that road. References were provided by Zoom. I don't remember them off the top of my head.
Greene County has recently gone with Zoom Phone, and Taylor County up in the northern part of Wisconsin they purchased Zoom Phone, I think, in the May timeframe, and they've been very happy. I've had some law entities that interact with them come to us to ask for that phone solution. It's very highly scalable because we can go all the way down to just a couple of phones, all the way up to 10,000 plus. So it's very nice for small businesses and all the way up to large enterprises. It's highly scalable.
All the references I spoke to for all the provided solutions were very positive, so it's difficult to ascertain just how you're getting the very best ones that they have, so you get to call. So I haven't poked around and found any unhappy ones yet.
Hey, Tim, so on the physical phones, are we going to have to replace the current ones with
Yes,
ones
sir.
that will have the app on it? Okay.
Yes.
And they will be hooked up to a regular Ethernet line?
Correct. There's no analog phone lines going in the new building, so we have to make sure that whatever we're putting out there is connected by Ethernet.
And I'm sorry I was late. Is there any cost for the replacement of those physical phones?
I didn't include that extensively on the sheets I handed out. Under Zoom, I estimated 50 phones at about $153 a piece. And my goal is to make that come from my small items account this year. So I would cover that cost out of my departmental budget. Those are small items of equipment. It falls under that particular parameter of the budget, so that's what we'd like to do. One of the proposals, they included the phones, but the 5-year cost is still higher, so
And that's where you'd mentioned you're still trying to get people to eliminate some of those to get that down as far as we can.
there are a lot of moving parts going on here, yes. The next step, we've already, I guess now is as good a time as any. One of the problems we had moving forward on a replacement phone system is nobody could figure out a way in the organization to make it revenue neutral. It was going to cost us money. But we started looking at, it started in department head meetings and then my staff meetings. Why are we only considering the desk set, the phones that are connected everywhere? Why aren't we considering the other items that we're communicating on? We're handing out smartphones like candy, and there's no overall strategy for how we're communicating. So this May, our bill was $5,900 a month on smartphones, and that doesn't include the highway. And that's just an obscene amount per month. By comparison, if I take all the phone lines, all the support we pay to Convergent, everything we're paying out for the monthly bill to Lumen and whatnot, it's somewhere around $2,500. So we're missing the big picture. By having a phone solution that doesn't afford us any flexibility to be able to be remote and mobile, we're ended up buying $42 a month smartphones for people that maybe don't need them. So we've gone through and we've already eliminated 20 phones that were being underutilized post-COVID and eliminated those lines. I need 30 more lines to be gone to fund this entire project. And that looks, I've got commitments from Human Services, Sheriff's Department, and Land Management to get to 50. My goal is to get us down to 82 devices overall that are monthly unlimited calling plans. And I think we can hit that goal, but it's going to take a lot of cooperation and a lot of thinking on the part of the department heads and the supervisors to make sure we're not going too far and making it so people can't do their jobs.
So a question for Aslam. Other government entities that are utilizing this service with what Tim was talking about, smartphone access, are they using bring your own phone and stipends and eliminating government purchased phones? Or how is that working with, assuming the application can be put on anybody's phone?
I think it's a very individual decision. You would have to look into kind of the regulations of how that works, like what your guys' laws and things that are. But I do know that most organizations that go with the Zoom solution are looking to reduce physical phones by 90%. That's what I've heard across the board.
Right, so but from your product and your
Yeah.
solution, there's no issue with being able to put it on an iPhone versus an Android versus
Nope.
whatever kind of phone.
Nope.
The
Zoom as a
solution
whole-
can be put on somebody's personal phone if our policies in the county are such that we could do so.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
we're demoing it in the IT department, myself, Daryl, you, and Renee. I have an Android, Renee has an Apple. I don't know what, you have an Apple.
Yep.
No problem.
Right, so for the committee, I mean, this is obviously a solution that we could use, but we would have to go through some policy changes, assuming that we would want to, allow people to use their own phone and go down a stipend path for those people who travel a lot and really need to have one cell phone instead of two.
I can definitely get to the 50 mark to fund this phone change without a stipend. But if you really want to dig deep and loosen it up further, there are just a lot of individuals who don't want to carry two phones around. So we've had a lot of volunteers at various levels of the organization, all the way from the sheriff all the way down to the lowest paid person here. They don't want to do it. So you could probably get to our original goal without dangling any fruit of any kind. But I think in the future you may be getting a lot of questions from staff about, can we get a stipend for using our personal devices? And we believe that your policy revisions are going to be kept to a minimum primarily because the application is self-contained. Everything that's done on it, outbound phone calls, inbound phone calls, reflect the county's number, but it's completely apart from their actual personal phone. And any text messages, voice messages, anything like that, it's all tracked on the back end. So if we had a freedom of information request into a particular department for users that have this running on their personal device, we would never have to collect their personal phone. So we have to work with Krista a little bit on that and make sure we've got it tight, but I think your existing policies will be okay. We'd want to double check some of the language on devices itself.
A cursory look at what you handed out, couldn't help but notice that Zoom's presentation or quote is not the lowest quote.
That is correct.
Can you, in English, explain
Okay.
why we're better off doing it that way?
And I do
the-
have some information to support some other things,
Well,
too.
Avaya is what you are speaking of, and this is through our existing vendor, Convergent. And we have another Avaya provider. TCC is crunching numbers. They aren't ready yet. But the stakeholder committee has proposed going with the hosted solution based on some key things. One being, it doesn't give us the flexibility to reduce those smartphone numbers. It doesn't include SMS. That text messaging feature is important because it allows people in Human Services Department, people in the Health Department, to be able to send text messages to clients, to arrange meetings and whatnot. And without that feature, I'd have to hang on to a whole lot more smartphones in the organization. So that was the primary motivator inside the stakeholder group's discussion. IT has concerns because an on-premise solution, again, the maintainability feature, now I have servers and hardware on our end to maintain, Microsoft licenses to pay for same, antivirus to put on said devices.
Making sure it's compatible with our other servers.
Right, so it creates a maintainability issue for the IT department. We'd rather not have to deal with having things on-premise as part of a solution on the back end. Security-wise, we didn't have any issues with it. What was the last one? There was a third key one. It'll come to me. But yeah, there were things that made it outside the parameters of what we were hoping to achieve. And the 3-year cost is higher, but the 5-year cost gets lower because after you've paid the upfront cost for the stuff you have on site, as long as it stays under support, you can keep that solution for up to 10 years. But though our last system lasted 17, I can't make commitments to how long that on-premise solution is going to stick around.
And one of the other items was that in the new building, all of the conference rooms are Zoom-based. The whole facility is basically going to be a Zoom, like here we're using Zoom right now for this meeting. So having that flexibility in with the phones also.
Said a different way, there isn't going to be any phone lines run in the new building.
Well,
That's not entirely true. The sheriff is, I believe, going to seek a hard line, an old-fashioned line running into the Emergency Operations Center. Yeah, there it is. That's the piece I'm missing. The on-premise solution requires what's called a SIP. And a SIP means that I have one line going out of the building that connects back to Lumen, and then whatever third-party provider of SIP coverage we have charges, when we go over X amount of minutes, we all have a variable rate. So any overages aren't included in this number, but you're naturally going to have overages because this proposal only pays for X number of minutes per month. Plus, the SIP is the single point of failure. With this Zoom solution, we have 3 different connections into the building once the Justice Center's up. As long as we have internet, we have phones. Doesn't require any special needs on the networking side. It doesn't require special needs for us to worry if a backhoe takes out the Lumen line, we're not dead in the water.
and those that have it on their mobile phone, as long as they have cell connection and data plan with their thing, that's up and running at all times. The only ones that would go down would be the ones that are answering through the laptops
Well, that occurs when we don't have internet.
on that line. That end.
This building, when we don't have internet, same?
In regards to what?
Our ability to communicate on the Zoom.
Just on the laptops, it would be.
Yeah, if the internet is out for the entire building, which would require some special magic, because that's 3 different lines would have to be severed somehow. But it's not outside the realm of possibility.
The minute you say it can't happen, it will.
Right.
Right.
So, yeah, the functionality would fall to the phone.
That's
then
called dual redundancy.
Yeah.
So it's kind of,
there was more redundancy with the hosted solutions versus the on-prem. Not bulletproof, but a lot more there than the
More
others.
reliability.
Now, to be said, in most of the customers we called, those with on-prem solutions seemed happiest with their call quality and consistency, but much of that was traced back to how they use the devices. People that use handsets and pick it up or have a special device connected that's a headset for it tend to have better audio quality on their calls. When they go through their computer, some people just like to plug in an old Bluetooth and stick it on their head. The problem isn't the service, the problem is the device they're using to communicate with their laptop.
So I think what the question was maybe if the internet service provider loses connection, that loses, then everybody that they're servicing loses connection. Versus what you're saying, that the lines coming in the building, we've got 3 different lines coming in from that ISP.
We have 2 different ISPs, though.
There you go.
yep.
Okay.
We have a line through Lumen that is our emergency backup line. It can handle enough to limp us along, and then the other 2 connections come from TCC.
Push comes to shove, we could have hotspots brought in, or we could have some hotspots, right?
If it was absolutely needed for emergency
Right.
situation type for those individuals, but if they have the app on their phone, it's running off of the data plan and that you don't need an internet connection other than through your data plan.
But if you had the hotspot, you could, the physical phones on the desk would then continue to work.
If they were running through your laptop, yeah.
So I think that the answer is there's multiple redundancies in if we go with this solution. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. And I think, quite frankly, the stakeholder group, their familiarity with the Zoom product and the fact that there was a desktop client that looked and felt exactly like what they've been working with, kind of did lead them towards it. I can speak to the other proposals if you so choose, but I thought all the proposals we received were quality. It's just the Crescendo was a less robust product. It didn't capture the imagination of the stakeholders. It didn't have.
I didn't like it because it had to be either on Chrome or Edge, and when it rang, I didn't know where to, if I had multiple things open during the day, if I was gonna answer it from my PC, I didn't know which tab to hit, where with the Zoom, it says an app on, and it pops up right on top.
And for those individuals from these other vendors that are possibly watching, I want to assure them, the committee considered all of them and thought all the products were really quite good. Nextiva, through Five Star Telecom and La Crosse, was a very close second, almost tied in the quality of the interface. The end users really liked it. And the Avaya, and then we did get Mitel proposals, but they were a higher cost than the Avaya, so I didn't include those.
Tim, does Microsoft not have a solution in this row?
They do, but there isn't anybody in the IT community that would ever let you go to it without harassment. It is notorious for its reliability and serviceability.
Okay.
I did want to share a little bit of information about that, because I think that what Tim is really trying to get at is kind of something called total cost of ownership. Zoom hired in 2021 an outside entity by the name of Metrigy, and they did, the thing that's important on this slide is that they had 761 responses, 4 interviews, and 757 electronic responses to look at the total cost of ownership and what that looked like in comparison to some of our competitors. And this is essentially like, we call it 0 day, day 1, and day 2, because you're going to have a lot of costs maybe up front, that second day, and then ongoing. And Zoom was extremely low in deployment, and then ongoing, we have something called the Zoom Learning Center, which has a lot of really great high-quality videos to take you step-by-step through getting people trained and getting them set up. We also assess and have a person that is called a customer success manager that is assigned to the account, and they can do individual trainings if you have some type of customized need, and they can do specific training for Trempealeau. And then there's the total, and so there's the delta. And we were found to be about 60% less total cost of ownership on the Zoom deployment. And it's overall less cost to deploy and service overall. So one of the great things about Zoom is that our company was founded on open innovation standards. And why that's important is because if you know about the Microsofts of the world and whatnot, they keep their code private. They do not let people code off of it. And we have something called a software-defined kit. We allow people to, we publish a certain amount of our code so that people can write integrations to it. So if you guys have some type of, if the sheriff's office has something that they want to be able to keep better notes or something, and they have a certain app that they use, it could be that they could reach out to that community and get something to work with it. So we are going to separate ourselves by our innovation and being ahead of the market and understanding new things that come out. And that's one of the things that help us keep ahead. So the total cost of ownership for a Zoom solution is approximately 60% less. We update our servers, we have redundancy, we have architecture globally that allows us to be able to have, the insurance that we're not going to go down. We do have 99.9% availability, which is a high number to keep, and we want that reputation because we want our customers to know that it's our lifeblood as well. If they go down, then we go down, and that's a example on us. So,
Hey, Tim, did you solicit Ring Central as a option?
They're priced outside of our
Okay.
affordability range.
What are the terms? I'm assuming there's a terms on this deal.
It's 5 years agreement at the rates. We have 181 lines that we'll be bringing over. And as of this time, like I said, I still have a couple of people to meet with and a couple more items to look into to make sure, but it's going to be somewhere between 180 and 185 lines.
That does not include highway.
Yeah, it doesn't include highway. It also is there's 16 fax lines. And now I've lost my train of thought. Going off. It's Monday morning, sorry, not caffeinated enough. Mr. Orsh, could you bring me back to where you were going?
I was just asking, terms, if there are any things.
Thank you.
Significant in terms of Zoom's terms versus other options.
I think all the proposals were a 5-year proposal. Nothing particularly difficult. Implementation cost has to be negotiated. We want to make sure we do this right. Aslan can correct me, but I believe we're looking at a 60 to 90-day conversion process. And we want to make sure that we come up with a statement of work and that makes it so that this thing works the way it's supposed to day one and we get the support we need. That's also something I'm looking at my budget this year to see if I can cover that implementation cost out of my budget without coming back to you.
Implementation is not included on any of these documents?
I took it out of all of them because that is a variable that can be anywhere from $0 to $10,000 depending on what we ask for. I think all these vendors would be prepared to allow us to migrate over to a new solution without implementation costs, but I think we'd be remiss in going that direction. That would really go sideways for us if any number of hiccups could cause us to fail, and I don't want this to fail. It's going to be hard enough as it is to ask people to make a big change like this. I think we're going to have to work with the winning vendor here and make sure that we design a way forward that really makes this work right from day one.
So you said this does not include highway in any of these costs?
No.
So what's the additional cost going to?
Highway currently has a system through TCC. They are fine with it. We brought them into the conversation, and every part of the conversation said that they were going to cost us more money if we include them. They wanted handset desks for every desk. They wanted to keep all their things the same, and it was going to, if I can't reduce, I have to make this revenue neutral. They're welcome to join in and participate and come along, but we have to do it in a way that's revenue neutral. I can't buy a whole bunch of handsets just because they want them. And I feel like Highway is in a place where they're quite content with the service as it is, and I'm not going to force them to change unless I get direction from the board.
If you had to add them, how much hassle would it be to add them down the road? Down the road, I'm talking to say, if they say in 2 years, can we come in? Is
They-
it allowable?
As long as they can connect to the internet through their connection through TCC, they would be just like us. They'd have their own work group. We'd pick out the lines that need to migrate over, pick out which ones don't, pick out what services, make sure that everything they need to do can be done through what we're doing, and I suspect it will, since a cursory analysis, they're no different than the courthouse, and it would be the same, I'm hoping the same price per line if we have to add 15, 20 in.
Yep, it would be coterminous on the contract that you currently have.
And like I said, they're welcome to join in, but right now, we had to move forward, and they're kind of in a different space. So we just let that off for now. And we wanted to make sure any solution we picked would be usable for Highway should they decide to join.
Easily expandable.
Tim, did you talk to the healthcare center at all, and what
No.
they're doing? And not that we wouldn't necessarily have to do it, but maybe it's a big center out there with a lot of users. Maybe we could get a better deal if we were to bring them in.
I don't know what size the healthcare center is, but a
I,
few things that might be important to them is that we do work towards HIPAA regulations. I don't say compliant because that's not something to be achievable, but could be something that we look at.
well, we have not conducted joint operations with the healthcare center at any point in my 5 years here. And so therefore, I'm not used to the process where we would be including them in what we do.
I understood, their IT stack and everything is completely different, and you're not supporting that, I understand.
And I'm up against a time crunch here. Our current solutions voicemail is going to start giving us real problems next year, and I have to move forward. And if I have to start an entire new process and negotiation with another organization.
No, totally understand. I guess my question is more along the lines if we wanted to somehow, in the future, hey, Zoom, we have this whole other entity that you hadn't considered for our county. It is part of our county. Would you
And if-
consider opening up your contract, and if we extend it a year or whatever, let's give us a better deal? Right? So as long as that verbiage or something like that is in the terms, I think that would be great.
Darren's nodded.
Okay.
Had Darren joined us too? I don't
Yep,
know if
Darren is with us from the
Oh, he
beautiful
made it.
Yeah.
state of Wyoming.
Hello,
Yeah,
ladies and gentlemen.
I don't think that would be an issue at all.
Good.
But I don't know how much more money we can shave off this. I'm pretty impressed by all the numbers that were delivered. Every organization that delivered a proposal to us came in well under market price, what's posted out on their websites and such. So I think we're getting good responses from different vendors.
I have all the faith in the world in the people who did the heavy lifting here. Are there any more questions for any of the people gathered here today?
I guess just one, I heard, Tim, you made some comment about security, and I guess that always concerns me, because I think once we go on the web, we do open ourselves up to more possibilities of security issues. Plus, we're tying into an existing, we would be working with an existing Zoom or whichever program, and there would be, I don't know much about software, and I don't know what that software allows them to do with information that comes through. I don't know if you want to, if there's any responses even warranted from my thoughts on this?
All the proposals that we considered had to meet a certain security threshold. We analyzed each one of them, and they said all the right things. They provided us with detail on how they function. Yes, the web can be a scary place, but it can be equally scary to have a solution inside your network that connects to the outside. This doesn't, just because it's hosted out in the cloud doesn't make it any more or less dangerous to the organization. We have to make sure that the connections coming into the building are protected with firewalls, and that we're not creating a situation where you're putting a back door in for the bad elements to get inside. We didn't consider any phone solutions that we felt would put us in a place where we were having to defend more boundary. We wanted to make sure that all the solutions work within our existing security parameters.
So what you're saying, that you would think that at this point that the security boundaries would be every bit as good as what we've been dealing with in the past?
I think that's safe to say, Dick.
Yeah, because we would have, if we had an on-premise solution that was connected to the internet, we would be the ones responsible for updating the firewalls and keeping the security patches going, whereas we're gonna contract with some outside hosted solution to do the same.
Yeah, it provides one neck to choke. So when this goes, there's somebody at
He's
Zoom
so
that we can.
Wonderful.
You don't want a situation where you've got somebody sitting outside your organization that's supporting a system inside your organization that says the problem's on your end, you deal with it. We don't want anything to do with that. So I felt like all the proposals were ones that we felt we could deal with. The Avaya solution, the on-prem one, was proposed by Convergent. They've been a partner with us since 2005. We trust that they know what they're doing enough to step us through that. But at the same time, having that solution on site, multiple servers, now my staff is having to maintain the security profile for those, the Microsoft licensing, the antivirus, all that stuff. This puts the onus on the organization out there for making sure that they're following the security requirements as much as we are. And like I said, one neck to choke. We make a phone call and figure out what's going on.
One of the reasons that you would need to purchase newer phones is because there is a security protocol to connect to the cloud that's in newer phones that isn't in older phones, because the technology is just different how they connect. So that is one, that's why we have a list of different options you can choose from. I've given that to Tim so he knows and he can price them out. And in addition to that, Zoom strives for high security. In the past year, we've gotten certain certifications. Might not mean a lot here, but the commercial platform that we're performing here, what this bid is for, is Department of Defense Level 2 certified. So, it's something that we try to get those certifications, and Zoom itself is a local exchange carrier. So the dial tone and everything would be coming from Zoom. That's the proposal that Tim has, so, yeah.
Looking for a motion?
I am looking for a motion to accept this proposal.
I would move that this was going to go to the board, I assume.
Exec finance first, right?
Correct. It does involve money, so we need to go to exec finance next.
Okay, I would move that we refer the recommendations of staff in terms of the Zoom program to exec finance for further movement, I guess is the right term.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carried. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Darren.
Thanks, Dick.
Oh, we can't hear you, Darren.
You're muted, Darren.
No, am I?
He's having issues.
Okay.
Kick him off. You want to go to Kurt next, or do you want my list, my updates?
According to the agenda, he's up.
he can go then. That'd be fine. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Morning, Kurt.
My update will be brief, because it was requested that way by the chair, right?
Yeah.
So kind of give you a quick update on things that have progressed since the last time we met. Project is moving along well. No lost time accidents, still continue to be safe, which I'm very thankful for that. We did have to adjust our design meetings with the departments. We had them scheduled for the 3rd and the 4th. We had a conflict with other meetings that we had to shift the second meeting to the 17th. So next Monday, we will meet with the balance of those departments. We got through about half of them on the 3rd. The balance of them are scheduled to happen on the 17th. And really what we're doing is we're going through all of the spaces that are required per department, number of staff, offices, kind of quantifying what that looks like, and then talking about potential locations for them to be housed in the existing building. So I was hopeful today to bring you an update on all of them because we had to shift the schedule. It'll be after the 17th, and I guess I want to get into when we want to meet again because I'd like to do that sooner than later so I can get some direction on where we want to head with that. But that's underway. The contingency and the VE process, so we've got a couple of change orders that we haven't received final numbers. So Kurt is putting together a spreadsheet for you guys because I think the best way to do this for the new members, I know you old timers that are here know the process, is when the project came in and it was over budget, we did a value engineering exercise where we went through and got some savings from multiple areas. There was one big component that was tied back in to audiovisual and kind of technology that is that last VE item that is earmarked for that. And because we ran so many months without a contingency, we used those VE savings on that big one to take care of some of them small items that we've been authorized to take care of under 25 grand. And it would look confusing if I didn't bring in all that summary. So I have Kurt putting a summary together, and we're still waiting on a couple numbers that I'd like to bring you all of that to show. Here's VE, what's been consumed, and then what's contingency has been approved, and what is still out there. So we've got about 4 or 5 change orders that I do need to bring to you at our next meeting to be able to identify what those contingency approvals would be. But continue to work through that process on the VE and contingency, so no action needed today for our change orders. And then the last biggest component, I know it was requested for us to look at the addition, the Justice Center for any offices that are open or potentially open the day that we occupy of people that don't have a butt in the seat, so to speak. We have been able to meet with the sheriff, and we'll have a floor plan together in regards to where those spaces may be for also the sheriff, the courts, the DA, child support, and then clerk of courts. The one area that we do want to meet with Rick, because we know there's been a change in regards to Rick's role here related to child support and obviously corp counsel, and I've asked if we can combine some of those spaces rather than it being just in 2 locations. Can we combine them? There is some state requirements that are going to prohibit how we do that, but we're going to look through that when we meet with him on the 17th. So I guess what I'm telling you is there's a lot of stuff that's in motion with nothing for us to bring to you for taking any action today, but we are making progress, and our goal is that we will have a floor plan, a couple of floor plans. One would be kind of a minimal renovation portion, the other one would be kind of a long-range plan with prices to you by the end of this calendar year so that you can make a decision which option of the 2 you would like to move forward with so we could start the design and keep things moving along. I do want to say that the departments that we met with so far, very open and receptive, understand the situation in regards to the budget, and have been open-minded about what we can do with their location and what makes the most sense. So
I was very pleasantly surprised with the overall attitude the whole day. Very cooperative and looking at the same goal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were all pretty good. They wanted to work with you, and I think what you must have asked them before, or the board must have asked them, and they came in with kind of like a wish list. Now they came in with, this is what we can live with. Mm-hmm. And that was nice. I mean, it kind of shrunk it down, so it's not going to be quite as bad as we thought, as it was before.
Yeah, and I think that's the one thing we got to be aware of when we make this decision. And I wouldn't use the term wish list, I would say kind of a long-range projection, is that we don't want to make a decision that you're going to suffer in 2 or 3 years, right? I think that's what we're hopeful to do. We're going to get through these meetings with the departments, and then Corey and his team are going to put a couple floor plans together, and I'm going to point out the issues with each one of them. And then you can make a decision in regards to what does that look like for a long-range plan and what that investment may be, so.
So basically, you're saying the December meeting, you'll have this information.
Well, that was the thing, I'd like to meet with you guys before, yeah, the December meeting will be all of the work.
Right.
But prior to that, I kind of want to give you an update on where we are. And that's where I run into trouble, because I know we typically meet that first or second Tuesday of the month, and I'm going to be out of the state chasing wild animals. So is there any way we could meet before then, like maybe like the week of the 24th?
This month?
Yeah. It's only 2 weeks away, but then I should hopefully have that contingency log put together. And I thought about doing it on the 17th, because you're all going to be here for the board anyway, and I'm going to be there. But that whole day I've got booked up with meetings. And if we can't, we can't. It would be nice to meet sooner than pushing it too far.
I'll throw mine out first, because I want to. So if we did it the week of the 24th, it would have to be an early morning,
Okay?
8 o'clock, where I'd be out of here by 9:30.
Okay.
And I would prefer the 24th.
I'm just saying that week.
Yeah, is the 24th available?
24th works for me.
Is that
It's
a
a
Monday,
Monday.
correct?
No.
Does not.
When's our
does
county
not
board
work
meeting, the
for me.
17th?
17th, yeah.
Okay.
24th is out for me, but I have the other 4 days.
Oh, I
Wide
can,
open.
I have every day as long as I get out of here by 9:30. That's just me, so there's 4 others here.
What about the 25th? That's workable for you
Yep.
then? How about the rest of you?
Oh, actually, I forgot, the 26th I could be here anytime during the day. So, if that was better.
Early morning of the 25th would work for me, too.
That's what I would prefer, as early in that week as we can.
Works for me.
You like the early morning?
Yep.
Fine with me.
Yeah, 8 o'clock, is that,
Works for me.
is that fine with you?
Yeah, absolutely, make it work.
Have to get up for,
So this just will be another
and it shouldn't
meeting,
take over. an hour.
Committee.
one line item.
Yeah.
Oh, that's for discussion. Do we want to deal with that in lieu of a November meeting, or just a special meeting to deal with one item on the agenda? I think it's a little quick to have it serve as November's meeting. We should probably meet in November as well.
I mean, the November meeting, I will be back, if you guys wanted to look at November, I will be back the week of the 14th. It's just that 1st and the 7th, I'm gone those 2 weeks. So if you wanted to meet the week of the 14th of November, we could do that. If you wanted an update sooner, I was thinking you may want an update sooner on the
Yes.
department meetings, because we didn't hit this window because we had to shift the date, but if you want to wait and do it then, whatever you think makes the most sense.
I like the quick update,
Okay.
Yeah.
and then if we have to come back in November, we have to come back, I
Yeah,
guess.
I think.
It might be good to do that, otherwise it's until December
Yeah.
7th or whatever it
I
would
agree.
be.
I think it's gonna be a long meeting, and not
Or
long, but it's gonna
10th, maybe.
be time consuming, just trying to say, okay, we're gonna switch this around, and I think it'll be a lot of questions and a lot of discussion. So it'll be good to get it out of the way, and then if we still need one in November, we can always have one, no big deal.
Plan on meeting again in November
Yeah.
also, right?
Yeah.
So is our normal meeting going to be the 7th or the 14th? Normally, it's either the 1st or 2nd Monday, right?
So we could just meet on the 14th then, you're saying?
That would work for me.
Yeah, are we, is that when it's going to be, the 14th, or? No,
Yeah.
I think we should have the extra meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
I know
But,
we're getting ahead of the agenda,
But
but
then have a November meeting on the 14th.
Yeah.
is that the time, or is it the, I mean, the election is on the 8th, so I didn't know
I
if that
think
mattered.
it's the second Monday, so 14th would be the day.
So the 14th is when it would normally be,
Yeah,
okay.
because exact finance is the first Monday, probably.
There you go.
Well, why don't we get that scheduling out of the way? 8:30?
Will these change orders be available for discussion?
He said early.
On the 25th.
8 AM.
Well, that might be a good way
Sounds
to
good.
take care of the change orders too, so to give us a little more reason to be here. So we're doing October 25th at 8 AM for the special. Extra meeting.
Yep,
And the regular meeting on November 14th at 8.
8 or 8:30.
8:30, I would
8:30.
guess, huh? Or whatever you want to do. I don't.
You guys tell me,
Either one. I'm good either way.
can you make 8?
I'm good either way.
Doesn't matter to me. I'm good at 8. I'm
Okay,
done
let's
driving bus at
do it at
5:02.
8.
You like the 8 o'clock?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect for me. Sam,
you're gonna be
you like
here
8 o'clock?
Yeah, I get comp time. I get Great.
So other than that, for my update, obviously the building is progressing nicely. You can see the steel's being set. Roof is actually on the west side, moving east as we get the steel and things wrapped up, so that's moving along well. So, still got some shortage of some tradespeople, but we're working that as best we can, what's availability, and it's part of the industry dealing with it, so. That's all I have. That's brief enough for you?
It'll work.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Tim, you're up.
This starts with you, and then it also has to go to exec finance, and I would like it added to the agenda for exec finance. I'm requesting that the revenue account for providing services to local agencies, that we've done a pilot project with Whitehall PD that's gone really well. So any services we provide, we negotiated an agreed upon amount where we support their end of the solution instead of just the sheriff's department piece of it. It's working really nice because now we can both pass our CGIS audits between Whitehall and the county, so we're controlling both ends and doing our due diligence. So far, it hasn't really dipped into my staff's time in a way that's been a problem. We don't know how many other agencies are going to do it, but you know, if I'm bringing in $1,000 to $5,000 a year out of this, that's about all I'd expect. But what I'm hoping for is a rollover account, so that could be parked somewhere and have, instead of padding my budget and sitting on it all year waiting for the disaster to happen, and if it doesn't come, then I buy a bunch of small items. I think it would be nice to have that some amount of money, $10,000 to $20,000, that is carrying over year to year. If I have a disaster where I have to replace a server suddenly, I can cover that. A $4,000 repair budget is not enough for IT to actually do anything. So not having any variability to the budget, if I had some carryover amount that I could tap into should there be an emergency, I could actually give you a truer sense of our annual budget.
Would this be referred to as a non-lapsing account?
However the county words those things, yeah.
I appreciate the information and the basic request, but personally, I can't give you an answer. I think it sounds like a good idea, but the whys and wherefores, I think, are rooted in another committee and
Exec finance.
other individuals.
Well, I think he can get the support from this committee to seek that option. What kind of a dollar amount are you talking to?
I don't think I'd want it to grow over 20,000. I think we could cap it at that, and unless prices go up on stuff. But a switch costs $7,500 to replace. A server costs $10,000 to replace. Generally, having somewhere around $20,000 hovering around there would be enough to meet the most dramatic needs. I wouldn't want to tap it for anything but an emergency repair kind of thing. You know, like.
Well, it could be written up accordingly, too, that agreement.
We
yeah.
can let exec finance do the actual wording. I don't want it to become an emergency fund that, oh, we got a new software solution. If we just had the 20 grand to cover that, this should be something that is only used for repairs of existing equipment. I don't want it for new services or expanding services. I think it's strictly there so that we can cover an emergency for something that we already have.
But Human Services have, I don't know how many they have. In fact, I've got to check into that. But the way those are set up is that they may be established at that given amount to start with, but it is also a fund that allows for, if there's money left in the budget and that fund, say, has fallen to, we'll use your example of 20,000. If that has fallen to 10,000, and there happens to be $10,000 left in his budget at the end of the year, that would flow in there to make it whole, and it wouldn't go back to the general fund. And that's what you're kind
I'd
of
like to
suggesting.
I'd like to get to that 20,000 threshold as fast as possible, so then I could, next year's budget would actually reflect what I expect to spend on certain items in its entirety, and then be able to adjust it year over year in a way that makes sense.
We'll let the exec finance figure that one out.
So since I'm on the exec finance committee, let me just ask a quick, because I'll ask these in that meeting too. So what you're asking for is to take some of your budget that's not spent, if you don't spend it, and put it in a non-lapsing account within IT's budget, so it doesn't go back to the general fund, so that if you had a server breakdown, you would use that money rather than going to the general fund to get it. So you're basically gonna, for lack of better words, hoard taxpayers' money in the IT department rather than the
General fund. Correct.
Okay,
I'm
okay.
a little concerned with 20,000 being enough if there's some catastrophic.
But I think you start somewhere.
It started, but
Yeah.
don't cap it initially.
But couldn't he go to general fund if it goes over 20?
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you'd give him enough time to get the
If a
basics
server, if a
done.
server goes down, Tim, you're gonna get the server.
Right.
So I'm not sure why, something to think about between now and that
Yeah.
committee.
You've correctly identified the rub, and that I completely understand. It would make it fall under my control rather than general fund. But it would have to be defined strictly for that purpose. I don't, like I said, I don't want this just to be some sort of slush fund that gets tapped into, strictly for an emergency situation involving IT equipment.
I guess my experience is that I don't normally, I don't think in the past we've seen the people in the departments that have such a funds draw that out unless they absolutely had to, because they would protect that with their life. I mean, that money is there for a purpose, and they'd like to see that balance stay solid. But I think what Tim is saying is that maybe the key thing is that if there's money left over, it doesn't show up and it goes back into to make that whole again. He doesn't have to show anything in his budget when he writes the next year's budget, because that's whole. Is that fair to say?
I think
Something like that?
we're in the ballpark, but I think we're going to let exec finance, and David, you will speak to this. I don't know what mechanism to fill it. I'm only proposing that I have it. If it ends up being only revenue that the IT department brings in goes into this non-lapsing account, so be it. If it's money that should be returned to general fund, they can keep going back to general fund as far as I'm concerned. My goal is to get it to a certain space as quickly as possible, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's what the board's going to decide. You guys set the direction, and whatever you choose, I'm perfectly good with. I just wanted to put it out there as a possibility for any revenue could be steered towards that non-lapsing up to a certain point.
Yeah, my guidance would be, when you come to the finance committee, have that lined out, because I think it would be much better received if, as you said, any revenues coming in from outside sources that we're going to be supporting could be used to support those outside, entities with that revenue, and then setting that aside, much easier understood than just a general fund for whatever, so.
Agreed.
I'm not saying I disagree or agree, I'm just saying, having that, well thought out, and say this is why we would need it, I think it'd be good, so.
I'm rarely in danger of returning money to the general fund at the end of the year, so.
What's the likelihood that you'll expand the services to the municipalities in the county?
Well, there are some concerns at the local agencies that have not been addressed. Some agencies, Arcadia and Osseo, are large enough that they have IT support from other organizations, but they also support the city water department, the city parks department, the city itself. So they're perfectly content working with these third parties, and their taxpayers are fine paying whatever. Other agencies, I think it's just, they don't want the sheriff's department swallowing up more of there's a we want to be independent from the sheriff's department, and they wouldn't want to have county IT servicing their stuff. We wanted to give it a run with Whitehall PD to see how it would go before we advertised heavily to the other agencies. But if we approached Blair PD, Independence PD, Oliva, and they were like, instead of paying $4,500 a year for IT services, if we just paid $250 per full-timer to the county, and Renee supports both sides of the equation, it actually makes it easier for us in some ways, because she's familiar with now both ends of the problem and can address it accordingly without having to call somebody from a third party and try and figure out what they're doing. Or when we get demands, we need to connect into your network and this is what we need, and they're like, no, that's not what we're gonna deliver. So we think it would really be advantageous for communities, but we understand why they might be reluctant.
Is this directed mainly at Pro Phoenix?
The big part of it is because we have these audits through CIB, we have to meet CJIS requirements, and one of the trickiest questions is always, are you controlling both ends of the distributed solution? When somebody runs a name against various databases from a local agency using the Pro Phoenix system provided by the county, do we control both ends of that network? And in most cases, we do not. They're connecting with equipment they control into a network we control, and it creates a problem for their audit and for our audit. So it really would behoove us to find a way forward on that.
Just gotta make sure that as it moves forward, it's done in a way that any support that, Tim, you're gonna get the points like, oh, I need another 2 people to handle all this extra stuff from these entities, and all of a sudden, those entities come back and say, oh, thanks, I don't need you anymore, I'm gonna hire my own IT guy. Okay, now we gotta downsize.
Yeah,
That
that's
needs to
why
be-
the pilot. We wanted to make sure that my staff wasn't extending themselves beyond what they were already doing. They're already supporting these local agencies in a lot of ways. Whenever there's a phone call, they can't connect, or they can't do this, or a password fails, my staff has to deal with it whether they're paying us support or not. And she's really not going past what she's already doing by enough to make me concerned, where I would have to come back for additional staff.
But if Galesville and Arcadia and Osseo and.
If they all jumped in-
Trempealeau, they all come on and say, uh-oh, now what? Do we just have to be careful? So.
Again, I would need to evaluate that further before, but I'm pretty confident that the existing personnel I have would be sufficient because they kick butt. They're very good at what they do.
I'd like to see, well, I can make a motion, I guess, that we forward this to exec finance, but I agree with you, David, this should be revenue generated and not general fund seed money.
Okay. Thank you. That doesn't require a motion, does it, Chair? Because
Well,
it's up to exec finance, isn't it?
I was gonna.
You're free
make
to
a
do what you
motion
like. Okay.
In support of this
Of taking it,
concept.
Yeah.
of taking it to the
Taking it to
And I
exec
need a
finance.
second on that.
I'll second it. I think it's a good idea.
Any further
It's better to do it that
questions?
way.
Hearing
By
none.
far.
All
That's a
those
good
in
idea.
favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carried.
Okay, as for the IT department, as reported last month, we are definitely seeing a lot more phishing attempts come through. So far, so good. Well-trained staff have identified most of them. We believe, based on bulletins we've received, that much of this is related to trying to create chaos by actors from across the globe prior to this coming election. We feel we're on top of it so far, but we are maintaining vigilance. Office 365 licensing, David, you're familiar with this because of the budget process. Big change at Microsoft means we had to make a decision. I have met with just about every department head, and they've been very cooperative. I'm not going to need nearly as many G3 seats. Most of them are fine with going with their staff going on the online version and working forward with that. We have a few access databases we're going to have to try and find a way to convert, and a few other niggling details to work through, but as of right now, the budget number we cut to, I should have no problem getting under that. And the increase should be small enough that I'd be able to handle it under this year's budget as well. Very positive responses from individuals on that. Printer removal, we've had discussions, again, meeting with the same department heads, trying to get rid of as many printers as we can now before the contract renews in February for the final year of the 5-year agreement that we have with E.O. Johnson. We want to clear the decks and make sure we've got absolute perfect numbers for what we're doing for printers. We don't want anything just hanging around for no reason. So we're asking people to look at what they're doing for printing and rethinking it now, and then thinking about how it's going to go in the new space to make sure that we have the bare minimum going forward. E-waste is currently an issue. We've got entire rooms full. We were kind of hoping that construction would be further along so that there would be a place to move all this equipment out. But it looks like we're not going to make it. I'm running out of space to all the old crap we've got. We're looking at finding a new bidder. We've always gone through First Choice up in Eau Claire, and they've been very reasonable when they come and pick it up. But I believe the state contract for E-waste has been assigned to somebody else. Unfortunately, that person's card that I got last spring, I can't find it, so I'm going to have to make a few phone calls. That we're looking at a pretty big project, and before the weather turns really dark, we should probably get that done. So we'll be rolling those items out. Anything that, before you ask, anything that we think has enough value, as far as a laptop that could be sold to the public when everything's wiped off of it, we've been turning those over to the sheriff's office and letting them sell it through their auction site. We're not interested in having multiple departments within the agency trying to set up auction stuff. And if the sheriff's willing to go ahead and take responsibility for that part, he can have it back in his account. We don't care. And that's all I had for updates today.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you for your time, gentlemen.
Jeremy was here earlier.
Jeremy had an appointment at 9:30, and he has no major concerns or issues to address.
Hooray.
Okay.
We,
Shortest report he ever gave.
items for the next meeting agenda. I think, look a lot like this meeting's agenda, except do we need a spot for telephone solution on the next meeting?
Yes, we will, because we're going to be finalizing the detail on every single service we've got. We want to make sure we've pinned down every line, every function, gone through, worked on all the different bills, all the different fax lines, making sure we're consolidating and we're going into it with an actual full knowledge of what we've got going on. We're also going to want to give you an update on the implementation, what they're proposing for a cost and a statement of work that we help define. And we may need to bring things to you for decisions on that statement of work, because I'm guessing there's going to be everything from a white glove solution where we don't touch anything, they walk in here and do it all the way down to, for certain minimums, they complete certain functions and we complete the rest. But we may need decisions from you on that, so I'd like it on there.
Do you need it as a separate item, or can we include it in your department update?
It's entirely up to you.
Well, we'll include it in the update of IT department then. Anybody have anything else they'd like to see on the agenda for the next meeting?
Where do we stand with regard to highway, and they're looking for support on new buildings, sheds, and that sort of thing? Is that tabled still?
It's not, in my limited experience, even though I've been on the highway committee since April,
Yeah.
that's not going anywhere currently.
Okay.
They still haven't got an agreement with the healthcare center.
Well, I can update you on that. That was on our agenda when we met. What day was it? Monday. Monday, what is today's Monday? Last Wednesday.
One of those other days.
Oh, one of those other days, yeah. And we met, we included a corp counsel in the meeting, and we left it with the idea that when the highway department feels they have found adequate funding, that they should initiate a contact with the healthcare center, and there's no reason, in my estimation, that there wouldn't be cooperation. But they felt like at this point in time, until, again, there's been funding secured, we do have contracts in place in terms of rental of the property, for farming and so forth. So, again, until the money is found to build up the building, we just leave it as is and ask the highway department to initiate that need at a different point. So the committee is not taking any position at this point. They feel it's up to the highway department to, again, find funding and move ahead with it and come to the trustees, and then we will see where we stand. Because we do have land contracts with these farmers, so, we're going to have to work with them, obviously.
But that'd be something, like, when you renew the contracts, you could get some verbiage in that agreement that this could be a possibility, just so you're aware of it, that we don't want to.
I think you can make people aware of it, but once
Yeah.
you have a contract, you have a contract.
Right, but when you come up for renewal, I'm talking about.
Yeah, but I'm
think it's
saying
up
you
next
can't
year.
say, you
When is it up?
let's just say that when the time comes, when we come to the time where we need to be talking about that property again, let's work on it then. And the goal is to meet everybody's needs and so forth, if at all possible.
Yeah, but my
just
suggestion,
nice
Dick, was just
people. Yeah.
down the road, if you have to renew the contract for 4 years, just talk, or maybe even put something, if you want, do something. Because this ain't gonna be, I don't think it's gonna be down the road if
Yeah.
it does happen, yeah. Because they want to kind of try to save up kind of like he is, so we don't have to get hit too hard with it, or ask the general fund.
Well, I think this is a good time to kick it down the road a little bit further. The timing is not the most ideal. And I think, I have to tell you, and I mentioned this somewhere along the way, maybe it was at this meeting, how many, if you go to Lunda's and you go to several of these big companies, the equipment sits out, and the cost, I think it was suggested that it's tens of thousands of dollars to get that equipment up and running. Well, what's the interest on $4 million? I mean, that's gonna, and $4 million, that covers a lot of years of getting machinery up and ready to go. So, I think there's a question in my mind, do we need, and this is gonna be a heated facility, if I'm not mistaken.
No, not totally.
It's a
No.
low heat. This is
No,
what,
I
50
didn't say that, I
degrees.
said not totally.
pardon?
Not totally. They might have some, like, half heated and half cold storage.
I think
They
Al-
haven't decided,
yeah.
it's down the road. And as far as the London idea that you keep throwing out there, they trade machinery every 4 years, 5 years. So they go down the road with a lot of their vehicles, where that way they keep it for 10 years, 15 years. So there's a big
Yeah.
difference, Dick, than having a paver sit outside for 5 years and then you trade it, or 4 years. Then here, we keep, some of the loaders and stuff you keep for 10 years, 12 years, and they're sitting out there.
Well,
I mean, there's a difference there.
Yeah, and I think the key is, we're really off topic here, but I think the key is that, I think it has to be shown that there will be a long-term savings by building a facility. And obviously, there are different types of facilities that could be built, too.
Oh, yeah.
You
Big
know.
time, Yeah.
And
In my own limited experience in this regard, it seems to me that we could do a better job of protecting our investment in equipment rather than having it sitting outside. But we could also do a better job of obtaining the data needed to make that decision.
correct.
And,
That's, I think, what I was getting at, yeah.
yeah,
Bottom line, it's not going to be on the agenda anytime soon.
No.
Okay.
That's the bottom line.
To answer that first question,
It's good conversation, because it's stuff like that is gonna come up.
Yeah.
And this is a
Absolutely.
good time to talk about it, so.
No, questions are always good.
So we're good on the next agenda. We're also good on the next meeting date and time. And I will adjourn this meeting at 9:59 a.m. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Sam.